Hi everybody, Mario Francisco Robles, Revenge of the Fans here with you, and today we're going to talk a little Superman, because today a big story hit the web courtesy of The Hollywood Reporter, and a bunch of you are asking me to kind of give my insight into it, or at least just give some sort of formal reaction, because right now people are freaking out. So first of all, I should say that it is not a done deal. First of all, as you saw from Danny Garcia's statement, it's not a done deal, and also from someone I spoke to behind the scenes over there, it is not final. Essentially, somebody leaked this prematurely. Now, it's unclear from which camp this occurred, but apparently last night, the two sides met and walked away at an impasse, which is how this story made its way to the press today. One of the sides went to the Hollywood Reporter to basically say, this thing has fallen apart. Now, what's interesting is, depending on how you look at it, both sides have a reason to do it. It's a very shrewd negotiation. From the Cavill camp, to leak this story is to try to force Warner Brothers' hand. Because by doing this, now they can go to Warner Brothers and go, look how people freaked out. Look how much panic there was in the air. People swearing off DC, swearing off the worlds of DC franchise. People are hating you for allowing Henry to leave. So maybe you should reconsider. So that would be the rationale from the Cavill camp if they are the ones who leaked it. If it's the studio, which, by the way, I do think is likely, because as I've said elsewhere, and as I've pointed out, the Hollywood Reporter is kind of the WB's unofficial press office. And a lot of times they give THR a bunch of big exclusives. You know, a big one that comes to mind is last year when the big thing happened with Zack Snyder exiting Justice League and they're bringing on Joss Whedon. Who did they give that to? The Hollywood Reporter. A lot of big WB DC stories come from the Hollywood Reporter. So I have a feeling that it was the studio. And from the studio's vantage point, they might have been the ones who leaked it too soon, just to kind of let the Cavill side know, we're not afraid to move on without you. You cannot hold us hostage. We will tell everyone that we are moving on, and we're not afraid to do so, because at the end of the day, Superman is bigger than any one actor. So, and that could be a way to try to force their hand to come back to the negotiation table and make a more reasonable ask, ask for a more reasonable, you know, whatever stipulations for the contract extension. So either way, it's not done yet. So don't freak out. And somebody broke the story too soon. Somebody leaked it. This is part of some shrewd, high-level, intense, going for the jugular negotiation tactics here. So, but now even aside from that, and by the way, I'm going to be publishing a written report on all this stuff. But aside from all that, something to think about, something to sort of put your mind at ease, is that even if this does go that way, even if they do decide to move on and no more Henry as Superman, and they're going to sort of essentially reboot and relaunch and restart and hit the reset button on all things Man of Steel, there is a silver lining that I want you to think about. Because, you know, look, if you're somebody who loved Man of Steel and loved Batman v Superman, and you loved this version of Superman, and you wanted to see where he was going to go, for better or worse, you were never going to get that anyway. Because as has been made abundantly clear in the 2 years since BVS came out, the studio has completely backed away from Snyder's vision. So we were never going to get the true follow-up to where that Superman was going to go. It was always going to be something that perhaps resembled the Superman that we saw in Justice League, because that is sort of the representation that they think is more fair for the character. That's how they want people to view Superman. Maybe not with a blurry upper lip, but in general, the way he acted there and that sort of, you know, chipper, one-liner, ultra-heroic, nice guy Superman, that's what they wanted. So for those of you who wanted to see the continuation of Man of Steel and BVS and all that, unfortunately, you were never going to get it. So in this way, you were spared seeing some sort of bastardization of that Superman. You were going to see a Henry Cavill sequel that basically attempted to ignore, retcon, or indirectly apologize for his previous cinematic outings. So you're spared that. Now you get to just kind of go off with Man of Steel and BVS as your main way of thinking about Henry Cavill Superman, and you don't have to worry about another Superman movie coming out where he would look and act almost nothing like that because the studio no longer wants anything to do with the way Snyder introduced these characters. Then on the opposite end of the spectrum, if you're someone who hated those movies, if you didn't like Batman v Superman, if you didn't like Man of Steel, if you don't like this origin, if you don't like the baggage that is now associated with this version of Superman, this is a reason to rejoice. Because now it means you're going to get a fresh start. They're going to get a new actor. We're going to get a whole new origin. It's going to be a whole new fresh take without any of the baggage of the previous sort of Snyder versions of Superman. So in a way, both sides can win here. There is a silver lining. I know it doesn't feel that way. I know it stinks and it hurts. But right now, you have to keep that in mind. So for right now, Superman fans, just be patient, be hopeful, be optimistic. Don't panic just yet. This is not a done deal. And even if worst case scenario, things do end up going that way, maybe it's not the worst thing in the world.